Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Andra Makes. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a composition notebook cover with an attached pen holder. This is my original pattern that I created and designed and wrote, and it was actually published in the winter 2020 issue of Quilts and More Magazine. And here it is. And it was featured in their gift guide, which means it's an excellent gift. I have made a ton of these, given them as gifts. Everyone loves them. They're for all ages, kids, both genders. I made my husband one out of camo fabric, so just tweak the fabric to whomever you're going to give it to, and they will love it. I've even monogrammed them before. They are fabulous gifts. Now, if you love these, but you don't want to make any, my friend Adam from Adam Sews makes these and sells them in his shop. So I will link his shop in the description box. He's in the UK, but ships everywhere as far as I know. So if you don't want to make your own, you can purchase one from Adam. He does gorgeous work. And here's the one that was in Quilts and More Magazine. You can see the pen holder is attached with elastic. That is handy. And then you open it up and then you insert the composition notebook in there. And then there's the back. And it does have binding, and I want to show you the composition notebooks that you need to use for this particular pattern. Here it is. These measure 9 3/4 by 7 1/2. So this pattern is made to fit this specific size. There it is, close up. And my Dollar Tree has these, so you can get them really inexpensively. And my Office Depot in my city has these fun glitter ones in different colors. Those are fun. And then here's one that I made in this fun construction vehicles fabric that would be great for little boys, and there's the pen holder. And then here's the one I made during this tutorial, and I've got the notebook in this one. There you can see that, really handy. If you make one or more of these, if you're on Instagram, please tag me when you make yours and post your pictures. I would love to see them and share them. If you're not on Instagram, just let me know in the comments if you make one. And I do have a coffee account if you'd like to leave me a little tip for this tutorial. If you can't, no worries, no problem at all, but I would love to see your notebook covers. So please be sure and let me know if you make any. And if there's anything that isn't clear or anything like that, just ask me in the comments and I will help as best I can. And another tip I have, if you plan on making multiples of these, I do recommend cutting out a template. This is poster board that you can get at Dollar Tree. It comes in a super duper large size. I do recommend getting some of this and cutting out the template for the front and back of the notebook cover, and then for the pockets where you will insert the actual notebook into. If you're going to make multiples, I highly recommend doing this. It makes it a lot quicker when you go to cut out your fabric. So let's get started and learn how to make these. Okay, here are the pieces you will need for your outer of your notebook cover, which is this with the sailboats that's going to show when it's closed, of course. You will cut one piece that is 11 inches up and down and 16 inches side to side. And then for your inner, which will not show a lot, so keep that in mind when you're choosing your fabric. You may not want to use your prized fabric for that because it's not going to show very much. It's this, the inner piece, and then when the notebook's in there, you won't see this very much at all. So you're going to cut the same size, which is 11 inches top to bottom, and then 16 inches side to side. And then for your pocket pieces, which will be these that the notebook will slip into, you're going to cut two 11 top to bottom and 11 side to side pieces. Two of those. And then for your pin holder, this part, not the pocket, but this part right here, front and back, you will cut 2 pieces that are 2 1/4 inches side to side and 9 inches top to bottom. You'll cut 2 of those. 1, 2. And then for the actual pocket piece, this right here that the pin is tucked into, you will cut 1 piece that is 2 1/4 inches side to side and 10 inches tall top to bottom. So 1 more inch longer than your pieces that you just cut. And then for the elastic, here and here on your pin holder part, I like to use decorative elastic, but you can use just regular elastic that's used for garment sewing, anything you'd like. And here's an example of that. I showed this earlier, but that's just regular white elastic that you would use for garment sewing. And you'll cut 2 pieces of elastic that are, well, the elastic comes, you want 1/2 inch wide elastic, and you will cut it 1 1/2 inches long top to bottom. 2 pieces of those. 1, 2. And then for your binding, if you want to make your own binding, which is fine, which is what I did on these, this one and this one, you will cut 2 strips that are 2 1/4 inches from side to side and 42 inches long. So basically the width of your fabric if you're buying it off the bolt. So 2 strips for your binding, 2 1/4 inches from side to side and 42 inches long. Or if you don't want to fool with making your own, you can use pre-made bias tape. This is extra wide, double fold, and this is what I'm going to be using. Now let's talk about interfacing. If you want your notebook cover to be interfaced just a little bit thicker, feel free to do that. And all you'll do is cut 1 piece of interfacing that is the same size as these 2, which is 11 inches top to bottom, 16 inches side to side. You'll just cut 1 piece of your interfacing, or you can use batting. And if you want your pin holder to be interfaced, you will cut 1 strip that is 2 1/4 inches side to side and 9 inches tall top to bottom. 1 of those of your interfacing or batting if you'd like. That is totally optional. So go ahead and get all your pieces cut out, and then let's get started making this composition notebook cover. Okay, let's make the pin holder first. You want to take your pocket piece that was 2 1/4 by 10 inches tall and fold it in half, wrong sides together. And then if you'd like, you can do some decorative top stitching or just 2 rows of straight top stitching. Anything you'd like to do, that's optional. And you want your fold at the top. And then you'll take one of your 2 1/4 by 9 inch pieces and put it right side up. And then you'll put your pocket piece on top. Make sure your fold is facing toward the center because you want all your raw edges together. Take your elastic pieces, take one and put it at the top and center it from side to side. And you want your elastic facing in. It's not flipped up like this. You want it facing in, centered. Then take your other piece of elastic and put it centered across the bottom. Again, facing in. You don't want it hanging out like that. And then take your other 2 1/4 by 9 piece and put it right side down on top of all that. Make you a little sandwich. And then I'm going to use Wonder Clips. You can use pins, whatever your preference is. And then pin or clip this all the way around. And then once you've done that, use a 1/4 inch seam allowance and sew all the way around this, but you want to leave about a 2 to 2.5 inch opening. I do not recommend leaving the opening where the folded pocket piece is, and try not to get too close to your corners. So about right here, leave a 2 or 2.5 inch opening, back stitching at the beginning and end. So do that and then meet me back here. Okay, once you've sewn all around and left a 2 to 2.5 inch opening, reach inside that opening and turn it right side out. And here it is, and there's the pocket, and then your elastic should be sticking out. And you want to reach inside your opening, use a point turner or whatever you have, and poke out your corners as best you can. Just be careful and don't poke all the way through. Now, if you want to press this, you can, but be careful and don't get too close to your elastic or it will melt. So here is your opening. So you want to put your 2 pointer fingers inside the opening and just sort of gently pull on it, and then the seam allowance will fold in on itself automatically. And then get your pin or clip and clip that together, and then you want to top stitch all the way around about 1/8 of an inch away, and that will close that opening. And then your pin holder part will be finished. Okay, now let's make the notebook cover itself. Grab your outer piece, the one that's going to show when it's folded, and grab your pin holder, and you want to measure over 6 inches from the right hand side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on the 6 inch mark you want to center your elastic on that 6 inch mark, and go ahead and clip it or pin it. Do the same at the top. Measure over 6 inches from this right hand side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Put the center of your elastic on that 6 inch mark, lining up your raw edges, and pin or clip that, and then baste that together top and bottom with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. So go do that and then meet me back here. Okay, now let's work on the inside. Take your 2 pocket pieces that are 11 by 11. Fold them like this, wrong sides together. And then if you'd like, at the fold, you can do some decorative stitching or 1 line of top stitching or a couple lines top stitching, whatever you'd like to do, or you can leave it blank. So fold both those pieces, wrong sides together, top stitch the folded edge if you'd like, and then take your interior piece and line up the raw edges. You want your folds facing the center. Make sure everything's lined up nice and neat. There are my folded edges. And then grab your outer piece that has your pin holder attached to it. Put it right side down. Like that. And then take your inner pieces and put it right side up. Make sure all your raw edges are matching, and then pin or clip all the way around, keeping all those edges nice and neat and even, and pin that all the way around, and then baste it together using a 1/8 inch seam allowance, and then meet me back here. Okay, there it is. Baste it together. Fold it over. Make sure you're happy with your pin holder placement. If you aren't, now's the time to move it if you need to or like to. Now, if you made your own binding, I'm going to send you over to my friend Izzy, Dizzy Quilts and Sews. She has a binding tutorial on her channel. I will link her channel and that tutorial in the description box. So if you made your own binding, I'm going to send you over there to do the binding. But if you're using pre-made binding, I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, I want you to unfold your bias tape completely. There's 4 lines, 3 lines, 1, 2, 3. So here it is completely unfolded. I want you just to fold it in half, like that. Now we're going to start sewing on the front of our notebook cover, and I recommend starting on the back portion of the notebook cover. Here is the pin holder. That's the front that way, and this is the back this way. So line up your raw edges. You just want your bias binding folded in half once, and line it up with your raw edges. Now we're not going to start sewing right at the end. We're going to come down about 3 inches to start sewing, and we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So about 3 inches down. Here's my bias binding. You want to leave this loose, this tail right here. So start about 3 inches away from the top, and we're going to sew down until we get a 1/4 inch away from the corner, and I'll show you what that looks like. So here we go. We're going to back stitch. Quarter inch seam allowance, keeping those raw edges lined up. Okay, here's the corner of our notebook cover, and we're going to stop a 1/4 inch up from the corner. If you need to measure it, you can, otherwise just eyeball it. And then when you get a 1/4 inch away, you're going to stop and back stitch. Okay, cut your threads. Okay, now you're going to turn your project. So here's your bias tape coming off the end of your project. Now you're going to fold it up. Like this. So it comes down, comes across this way, and then up this way. You want a nice straight angle. And the raw edge of your bias tape here should be lined up with the raw edge of your notebook cover. So give it a good finger press. And then you're going to take the rest of your bias tape, keep it folded in half, hold on to it right here so it doesn't move, and then fold it down. So it should be straight here and then straight on the side. You've got a nice angle with all that there. So now you're going to continue sewing. the raw edges. Keep your bias binding folded in half. See that nice angle there? Okay, now we're going to continue sewing a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We want to back stitch here. And we're going to sew all the way down to a 1/4 inch away from the next corner. Check your bias binding and make sure it's folded in half. Line up those raw edges, and here we go. If you need to fast forward through this, feel free, but I'm going to leave this in real time in case we have some beginners here. But if you know what you're doing, go ahead and fast forward. So we're getting close to the next corner, and we're going to stop a 1/4 inch away from the bottom. And when we get a 1/4 inch away, we're going to stop and back stitch. We're going to cut our threads, and we're going to turn our project again and just repeat that same step. Get you a nice straight edge here, and then with your remaining bias tape, keep it folded in half. You're going to fold it up, making sure you have a nice angle here. Hold on to it and then fold it back down, keeping that angle underneath, making sure you're straight here and here. And then we're going to come down the other side. 1/4 inch seam allowance. And we want to back stitch right here. And just go all the way down to the next corner. Checking your bias tape, making sure it's folded in half and those raw edges are even. All lined up. When you get to your elastic, make sure it's nice and straight when you go across. Now we're getting close to the next corner, so we're going to sew down until we're a 1/4 inch away from it. There it is under there. So we're going to stop a 1/4 inch away and back stitch. Cut our threads, turn our project, and repeat those same steps. I'm going to fold it up away from us, make a nice angle, even with this edge, and then we're going to fold it down. So we want a nice straight edge here and here. And then we're going to continue on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we want to back stitch right here. Okay, we're almost to that next corner. We're going to sew down until we are a 1/4 inch away from it. And when we are, we're going to stop. we're going to backstitch. We're going to cut our threads. We're going to turn our project and do the same thing. Should be a pro by now. Smooth that out. Fold it up away from you. Get you a nice angle. There we go. Hold on to this and fold it down. Make sure you're nice and straight here and here, and then continue on. Back stitch. Get to your elastic, make sure it's straight when you sew over it. Okay, now we're coming up on where we started. There's our little tail we left. So now we're going to join these two pieces together. So here's our tail, and then here's our binding that we're working with now. So I want you to, the binding that you're working with now, I want you to pull it down and measure about 1 inch from the tail. You're not going to cut this tail. You're going to cut this binding that we're working with. So put it on top of your tail, and then about 1 inch down from where the tail starts, you're going to cut the binding that you're working with, not the tail. So I'm just going to eyeball mine about 1 inch past the tail. I'm going to cut it. Okay, so now we have this tail and this tail. Okay, now I want you to take the binding that's under your presser foot, open it up all the way, fold the ends in about 1/2 inch to the wrong side, like that, and lay it down, and then take the tail that you started with down here, open it up all the way, and put it on top of that fold. And then fold all that in half. So that the tail we started with is now tucked into the fold of the tail that's under your presser foot. And I'm going to take this out from under the machine so you can see what it looks like. Okay, I clipped it to help hold it together. You can see the fold here. This is the piece that was under our presser foot, and we folded it under 1/2 inch, and then we tucked the tail we started with into that. So now we have a nice, neat fold right there. So now you're just going to continue sewing all the way down until you get where you started, and then the back stitch. Keeping those raw edges even. Now here's where I started, so I'm going to go over that a few stitches and then back stitch. And here's the join right there. So when you fold it over, it's going to be enclosed. No raw edges. Okay? So now you have all your binding sewn onto the front of your notebook cover, and what you're going to do is fold it to the inside of your notebook cover. So just tuck it in these corners here. Then let's clip that to hold it, and then just keep folding your binding to the inside all the way around your project. And you shouldn't be able to see your basting stitches or where you sewed your binding on. You shouldn't be able to see any stitches. This binding is going to cover that. So I'm going to continue clipping this all the way around, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like, and you do the same. Okay, I have all my binding turned toward the inside, and clipped down. Now there are 3 ways you can sew your binding down. I'm a quilter and I'm used to hand sewing binding, and personally I get a much nicer looking finish that way, and it's even quicker for me to do it that way than by machine. So I'm going to hand stitch my binding down. If you don't want to hand stitch, you can from the front. You can either stitch in the ditch, which is right here at the fold, but you have to make sure that you catch the binding on the inside, or you can turn it around so you can see what you're doing and stitch from this side. Just know that if you machine stitch, it's going to show on either side. So that's why I prefer to hand stitch, but you do whichever you like. And also a fun thing to do, which I have done, is if you have an S decorative stitches on your machine and you have like an S stitch, you can use that, and that will be very pretty. It will show, but it looks decorative. So choose your method to attach your binding, and then meet me back here. Okay, once you're finished with your binding, just insert your notebook and you are done. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I hope you make a ton. If you give them as gifts, the recipients will love them. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye!